Hello, snobs, past and present. This is Science Fiction Snob, and today I'd like to speak to you about my thoughts about Star Trek Discovery. I've been trying to figure out what is the key point about the show that makes me hate it. And there's lots of reason to hate it. The character of Michael Burnham is the prime one that most people speak about. I just want to try to. The character is bad, and it is a good reason to hate the show. But I'm trying to focus in on what bothers me the most about the show, and I think it is it's the writing, specifically, and that's a pretty big. It's a pretty big category. There's all kinds of things wrong with the writing, but I want to talk about a specific area which I think is something that hasn't been discussed before. The show has some good ideas, but they're poorly executed. That is the big problem of the show. Now, like I said, there's numerous problems. The character of Michael Burnham, you could do hours of videos just on how that character is bad. I don't want to go into it too much. There's too much there. The Mary Sue ishness of it, the over emotionality of the character, which I will discuss later on in this video as well. But let me just give you a brief overview of what I'm talking about. Now, season 1 was generally a mess, kind of cut into two pieces. But let's talk about I want to give the show some credit because there are some good ideas. It's just they execute them very poorly. So, the idea of the mirror universe in the first season, not a bad idea. It's been done in Star Trek before many times, but this is kind of a different way of doing it in that an evil character from the mirror universe comes over to the regular universe and takes the place of a character in there, and he's trying to get back to his own universe, walk the line between the two, and then of course at the end they bring in our characters and go into the mirror evil universe. That's not a bad idea. A little bit different than what is normally done. An interesting concept. However, of course, they screwed up with their writing. Let's talk about season 2. Season 2 focuses mainly on an AI called Control that is out of control, and they can tell, they get glimpses of the future, that if this AI gets control of the information in this sphere thing, which died or blew up and then put all of its information into Discovery, if Control gets its hands on that, then it will be able to evolve into a super powerful. It'll become sentient or becomes. I guess it's already sentient in the show because it does stuff that seems to imply it has sentience. But it'll become so powerful that it will destroy the galaxy. So, and the storyline basically goes from. In the second season, you've got little pieces of this whole big puzzle, and they each episode kind of fits into that piece. So we've got something that they find out, the Red Angel. It's showing up in weird places. It is a person in some sort of suit. These signals are going off across the galaxy in various places, and Discovery has to go from each of those places to find out what the problem is. So that's not a super original idea, but it's not a bad way to string a season together. Not the whole AI control that's out of control is kind of, it's pretty much a huge trope of science fiction, and it begs the question about, why can't the AI just evolve on its own? Why does it need all the data? Sure, this data will help it. Maybe this data will help it evolve faster, but it's an AI. What does it care about time? It can take the time. And of course, the solution to this whole situation is for Discovery they cannot destroy for various reasons. They are unable to destroy the ship with the data. They can't erase the data. Blah blah blah. So they're going to take it into the future, take the ship into the future. So it's kind of convoluted. As I said, there's some kernels of some good ideas in there somewhere, but it's just, poorly executed. It just seems like a poor way. It just seems like a way to get the ship out of this timeline and this whole mess that they've been making up with mixing in the old timeline and the new timeline, and let them start anew, which isn't necessarily such a bad idea. So that's what I'm going to discuss. I'm going to look mainly at two episodes in season 2 that I think very much show this problem with the show. So I hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's talk about episode 6 in season 2, The Sound of Thunder it's called. So just to give you a little bit of a background before the episode, some giant spear turns up. It gives the Discovery a whole bunch of data from hundreds of thousands of years that's gathered in various parts of the galaxy. So this serves as the plot to move the plot along, and they can find stuff out. They can basically find out whatever they want information because the sphere had it. So, kind of a MacGuffin device. So it also turns on Saru's biological responses. So now here is when I'm talking about one of the good ideas. So you've got this species on the Discovery, the only guy who's from the species, and they are supposedly a prey species. So, and we find out on their planet, when they become, in order to keep the balance, whenever they hit this certain biological response happens, some sort of flappy things on the side of their head fall off, and they're taken away, and to keep the balance. So they don't really know why, but they're basically executed when they reach a certain point of their. It's kind of like Logan's Run, right? You turn 30, off you go, you kill, you're killed, you carry on, go on, or whatever they want to call it. So not a bad idea to put a fierce species in Starfleet. I don't think it's been done before. However, it's been done a lot better in other universes. The most obvious one would be the puppeteers in Niven's universe. So, good idea, having a fierce species in. Not well executed, though. We're told, this guy he's afraid all the time. But we don't really see that in any of his behavior in season 1 or in season 2. Like, what would it be like to be fearful all the time? How could you survive as a military officer in Starfleet? And the character is the second in command of the Discovery. He's been in, he escaped 18 years ago. He's been in Starfleet for probably most of that time. You probably take it 10 to 15 years to become the second in command, a commander in Starfleet. So how has he been able to cope if he's living in fear? Did he fight his fear? Like what? Oh, it's just kind of thrown away. So anyway, the episode before this episode, he loses his little ganglia thing, whatever they're called, and he becomes, he's no longer feels the fear. So, that's good. It brings up questions about what's going on. He's supposed to be dead. He dies after this, but he didn't die. What's going on with him and the rest of his species is something he's assumed would happen to him. The first problem is, I'm going back to the episode right before this, but he thinks he's dying, his ganglia thing are falling off again. He's spending his time with the character Michael Burnham. You're my only friend. She hasn't been to Discovery that long, a season and a bit. He must have been on the ship for a bunch of years before that to be the number 2. Surely he'd have other friends in Starfleet and her. Like, she just sort of showed up, and she's a traitor too. What the hell? You're my only friend. Come on. He's number 2. He's got to have other friends on the ship. But that's more again of this whole emotionality with the character of Michael Burnham. Everyone loves her, and she's their only friend, and all this kind of crap. So poor writing there. If Saru, the character, he's not fearful anymore. He's sitting in the captain's chair. The captain comes in. They don't want to demonstrate the growing confidence that he has. The captain comes into his chair. What's supposed to happen every time the captain shows up? You're supposed to get up out of the chair and let the captain take over, right? And Saru just kind of sits there, and Pike, sort of the captain, looks at him and stares at him, and finally he's like, "Oh, what?" Oh, and he leaves. So I mean, that's a good little way of showing that he is now becoming a little more confident. But fear and confidence, do they equal each other? I'm not sure. So not a bad idea. Well executed, a little bit fuzzy. So then we find out a little bit in this episode, a little bit about his background. About he sent the signal to Starfleet, 18 years ago. I mean, what the? When we later on find out his people basically live in a medieval or lower level technology society. I mean, they go into a house and there's candles everywhere. They're all lighting the place by candles. How the hell was he able to take some, alien technology from the Baul, which is the other species on the planet supposedly, but no one's seen them in forever, and he took one of their technology and made a thingy, and he, signals Starfleet. Come on, like, even if he's a genius, what the hell? I mean, poor execution. Again, the Discovery goes back to his home planet. We find out that the Baul is the other species there. They're technologically advanced. They've only had warp for 20 years, but yet their technology keeps out the sensors of Starfleet. I mean, they're way ahead of the medieval guys who are lighting their homes with candles. But how are they being able to stand up to Starfleet? Then we get into the people acting in a non-Starfleet, non-military officer way. We meet the Baul. There's some talking. Saru is there. He feels that obviously his species has been lied to his entire life because he didn't die when this thing happened to him. So he goes into some whole woke speech right at the on the bridge while the captain is trying to negotiate with these guys. Like, shut the hell up. I mean, you're not helping things out. Why did the captain should be stomping on him? And he kind of does, but it already gets out of hand before the captain finally gets him to shut up. Here's my favorite, because this is gonna come in later. The Captain Pike specifically says, "We do not want to start a war between the Baul and the Kelpians," which is Saru's race, is Kelpians. So remember that for later. So then in the episode, Burnham and Saru go down to the planet. This is where we find out about a little bit more about them. We see the fact that they live in little huts with candles. Burnham says, "How come there's no? It's kind of twilight. How come there's no Kelpians around?" "Oh, my people are scared to go out at night." Really? Like, are there any big predators on the planet that we've heard about? If there are and they're scared, shouldn't there be people out guarding the place? What, anyone can just come in there? And are they hiding in their homes? We see their homes. It's not like their homes are barred. Like, supposedly for a fear species that live in fear their entire life, which is what we've been told, right? Fear is the defining thing in my life, what Saru says. Why are there no guards? Are there no big predator animals? And if there are, then why is everybody scared? Like, if the darkness doesn't hide any monsters, then why be scared to go out? And of course, there's more talk about oppression. Can you imagine? Saru calls his dad. He calls his dad his oppressor. Oh, he was one of the oppressors because he was a priest and he helped the Baul with this, crazy stuff that he did. I mean, no one knew about it. Calling his old man an oppressor. What the hell? Like, what kind of would he really act like that? So that's so he's down there. They eventually go back up to the ship, and then there's more crazy writing. So Starfleet is talking with the Baul. They're upset because they've found out one of these Kelpians has, evolved, and they're upset about it. They detected him when he was on the planet or something like that. So Starfleet has promised, and the Baul mentioned this, Starfleet has promised not to meddle in their affairs, yet here they are meddling. Again, so the Baul sends some ships to get the Kelpian back. Saru spouts off something about his oppression, and it gets too much, and the captain finally kicks him out. So then off he goes. He gets kicked off the bridge. So he immediately goes to the transporter, and he's about to beam himself onto the planet, or so the Bool can capture him, and so that the Discovery won't be destroyed. Of course, Michael Burnham knows he's going there and shows up with a phaser to shoot him just before he leaves, and they have a big speech. Please let me go, and she lets him go. How the hell did she know that he was gonna? And why isn't she on the bridge where she's supposed to be? The number 2 guy, she's the number 3 on the ship. The number 2 guy just got kicked off. Doesn't she have a job to do there? Well, how come she can just leave and go check on him? She can't call down to security and tell them to arrest Saru if they see him, or make sure he doesn't go to the transporter, or whatever, if she thinks that's what he's gonna do. Anyway, stupidity. Anyway, they take Saru somewhere into the Baul, take him into their clutches, wherever that is. It looks like a ship. And they also take his sister, and they beam his sister onto the thing, into the same area as him. Now, remember when, I don't know if you ever watched Enterprise or anything like that. I mean, they had 20 years after warp, they didn't have beaming technology. It took them, they discovered warp, and it took them 90 years before the Vulcans let them start flying around, really. And they had beaming technology, and they're like, oh, we don't really want to use that. I mean, where do these guys, they just discover warp, and now they can beam people to point A and point B, no problem. So anyway, they're put both, Saru and his sister are both put together. There's a lot of waiting around. They're talking to each other, blah, 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 speechifying. Why wouldn't you just liquidate them? If you beam her up, just beam her, because they take her, they say they take her because she knows about the secret, which is that they don't die when they go through this change. Why not just beam her and scatter her atoms to, the 4 winds or something? Why do they got to beam her with her brother? Stupid. And again, they're captured by these bad guys. They don't seem to, for a species, especially her, who seems to be fearful, she doesn't seem to be that fearful. I mean, you think people would be crapping their pants. Humans would be crapping their pants, taken by some advanced alien race and told they're going to be killed. And she's is in fear all the time, but she's just like, oh, I guess it's, doesn't seem to be that scared. So then they bring in, then some drones come in, and the drones put some sort of, scan them or something, and find out that I mean, as if they didn't know he was already, why did they take him if they didn't already know that he had been gone evolved? But they have to scan them again. And then some things come out of the wall, and he's chained to the wall. Yet, after speechifying and that, oh, I should do this first. So, they're in the room. I assume it was some sort of jail. And then there's this big pool of black stuff, and this Baul, apparently, it looks like one, I guess, comes out of the goo. It looks really horrible. It looks like something out of a nightmare. And it starts talking to them, telling them, oh, yeah, you're a horrible thing. Your people are blah, 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 blah. Who cares? And I'm looking like, we're starting to find out that the truth is that the Kelpians were the predators, and they were somehow devolved or into a prey and told they were prey, but the Baul are actually the prey, and they don't want the Kelpians to evolve into predators because the Kelpians almost wiped them out. We find that out from the spear earlier. So I'm like looking at this Baul. It looks like some sort of black nightmare goo thing made out of tar. What the hell? Like, how could this thing ever be the prey of anything? Like, it can't, prey are usually fast. They have to try to escape from the predators. It's got nothing, no kind of evolution that would ever let you think that it was prey. I mean, it's in the goo. It couldn't run anywhere. It would just be dead all the time. What the hell? Like, they put any thought into this? And then, and why would you, if you're a weak prey species, I mean, they do have technology to protect them, but why would you even take a risk of, oh, here's my little chamber and my pile of goo that I live in, even though I've got a force field around it? Why not bring the bad predators around, and I can talk to them face to face? And who knows? Maybe they'll find a way through my force field and kill me. Oh, I'm sure that won't happen or anything. Like, why would you even take that risk? Just kill them. So, so after the little speechifying gets done, Saru gets mad. He breaks out of the. He's chained by the arms and the neck to the wall with some sort of magnetic device. He just breaks out of it with his hand. I'm like, wow, these guys are like. Imagine if we made handcuffs out of twigs and straw, so that potentially we could break out of them. Like, that's the stupidest thing. We make them out of something that we never. That's why they're made of steel, so that no one could ever just break out of them. But he breaks out. And then, of course, he grabs the drones and he just simply, crushes them like he's Superman or something. I don't know. They make them out of paper, too. I don't know. Just stupid. And then, so then Saru has to, he has to call the Discovery. So he just takes the drones and, throws them together in about 2 seconds. And, of course, he's able to then speak to Discovery. I mean, I guess fancy radios and stuff like that, talking to a radio in space. I know it just takes little pieces of drone, you just slap them together. And of course, they have this big philosophical discussion about what happened. And then finally, they're starting to put things together, and then Burnham and the other one, Tilly, who I hate as well, they start talking, and it's like the captain does make a decision, but it's kind of like he's a passenger to this decision. The two of his junior officers are making, we could do this, we could do that, and then we could do this, and we could force the evolution of all the Kelpians, and the captain's just sort of standing there, and then they decide, hey, we could do this, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess let's do it. Like, he doesn't seem like a very strong leader, Pike, at all. What about the promise of non-interference on this planet? I mean, is this what Star Trek should be, or Starfleet should be doing? I mean, they're going to force the evolution of whatever, thousands, millions of these Kelpians on the planet. And anyone ever want to ask them if they want to be forced to evolve instantly? What about Starfleet? Didn't they come here saying that we don't want a war between Starfleet and the Ba'ul, or between the Ba'ul and the Kelpians? But yet you're going to force, these guys to evolve, which is the big fear that the Ba'ul have. What about the Ba'ul? Are they going to fight with Starfleet? They just had a big war with the Klingons. How many ships do you think Starfleet lost? They have this big threat from this Red Angel that they're worried about, which is the reason they came here. But yet they're going to start a war with these Ba'ul, who appear to, even though they're only been at discovered warp 20 years ago, seem to be a technological match for Starfleet. I mean, is Pike authorized to start a war with foreign aliens just because they might commit genocide? I mean, what the hell? Like, do they have any thought into the future of this? I mean, I just can imagine if, Kirk or Picard or any of these guys were dealing with this, they'd be like, wait a second, maybe we should be, there's a lot of problems that can happen there. But Pike's like, he lets his officers basically make the decision for him and say, and then he's like, okay, I guess we'll do it. And of course, the Ba'ul will try to commit genocide against the Kelpians, and he, of course, threatens them. He says, if you do this, then you'll be an enemy of Starfleet. Well, I can understand Starfleet sort of, sticks to their principles, and genocide is a bad thing. But again, one of the principles of Starfleet is non-interference. They didn't really follow that one, did he? So, I mean, what the hell is going on with this show? This is just an example. It's like the writers have no idea what Star Trek is about, and they just, let's throw a bunch of stuff together, put a Starfleet sort of Star Trek logo on it, and carry on from there. So that is the season episode 6, and I think this is a perfect example of the problem of some good ideas but really poorly executed. I'm going to give you one more example as well. So let's talk about the next episode I wanted to highlight, which is called Such Sweet Sorrow, Part 1. So this is episode 13. It's the episode right before the finale. So we've some spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen it, you're not missing much. So what's been happening is they've finally figured out what's going to happen. They've decided that they can't just to get rid of the data that all this data they have got from the sphere. the bad AI is going to use it and then destroy the galaxy. So they figured out they can't get rid of this data, so they're going to have to take the ship into the future. They decide they're going to just take the ship into the future, and that'll solve the problem. I don't know why. I mean, if it's the AI is a machine, why not just go hide itself on some planet, wait for 1,000 years or however long until they show up with the data, and then get the data from them then. But I'm not here to so much to criticize the plot, more of the writing. So they first of all they decide they're going to blow up the ship. So there's this over emotional goodbye of the crew to the ship, voiced with a sappy voiceover by Burnham. Everyone's looking at the ship and getting all wispy and the poor ship's going to blow up. But of course they try to blow up the ship and the ship doesn't blow up because the data is somehow protecting itself and it stopped the ship from blowing up. Okay. So they decide. So now they come up with the final plan. Burnham is gonna take the ship in the. She's gonna get in the suit. She's gonna open the wormhole to the future, and the ship's gonna fly in the future. And then they figure that they'll leave the ship there, of course. And Burnham can't come back either. So she's gonna be stuck there. Again, so much emotional baloney, over emotional baloney. So I'm going to start giving a couple examples. So the captain says it's time to leave the ship. This is before they can't find out. They don't know that the ship won't blow up. They say they're going to blow up the ship. They go, we got to go. He says, hey, Burnham, grab the time crystal and let's go over to the Enterprise. They're with the Enterprise. And, the bad guys are going to be here soon. It's kind of a bit of a hurry. But instead, he goes, come on, grab the crystal, let's go. Instead, she's like, I can't let my mother's sacrifice be for nothing, blah, blah, blah. And they have to talk for a few minutes before. I mean, in the military, the captain tells you, hey, get your ass off the ship. We're going to have to blow it up. You get off the ship. You don't have to tell them, oh, let me talk about all my feelings. I mean, what the hell? So they go through, there's even more of this emotionality. The engineer and the doctor, the gay couple there, Paul and Hugh, they have to bump into each other. Meanwhile, in engineering, while they're rushing around trying to build this suit fast and get all this stuff set up and do these fancy things with time crystals and dark energy and all this stuff, they have to stop and have this emotional talk because they're trying to resolve their personal issues that they had from some episodes earlier. I mean, this is a panic situation. There's like all these ships coming. They're going to get blown up. But, let's talk about that. So next emotional thing. There's a big speech on the bridge. Everybody is there. All the characters. Even the two engineers are supposed to be their two best engineers, the chief engineer and this other woman who showed up who's a really good engineer. You think they'd be building the suit. No, they have to be on the bridge. They're on the bridge. They're not even like engineering pausing to listen to a speech over the loudspeakers. They're actually on the bridge listening to this big speech. Burnham has to tell everyone that she loves everybody. I mean, okay, you love everybody. I mean, sure, they're your comrades, but like, let's not get a little, that's a little bit much. I was in the military. We didn't love each other. Okay, we count on each other, but I mean, love. I mean, she cries as if like she's breaking up with her with a boyfriend or something like that. Then what else? Oh, then Giorgio. So Giorgio is the character. She's come over from the Mirror Universe. She used to be the emperor of the human, basically the Federation in the evil Mirror Universe. So she was the head of this evil human empire, which basically took out all the other races in this alternate reality parallel universe, and the whole human empire is basically run by backstabbing and being ruthless. And she's all like, oh, Burnham, trying to talk her out of going into the future. Like, really? This is the worst. This character is the worst person you could ever imagine, the most cruel, uncaring person. She spent the entire season, saying, oh, who cares about this? Who cares about that? I mean, they had this discussion earlier in this same episode where they needed the energy to power this time crystal, and they need so much energy. And her solution was fire an antimatter torpedo into a sun and make it go supernova, just destroy the entire solar system of this sun. But hey, we could get our energy, kill all the life and everything. I mean, she doesn't give it, and now she's going to be crying. Oh, Burnham, you might go to the future. Oh, it's so sad. Give me a break. Who writes this stuff? Oh, and right after that, so Sarek and his wife show up, which are Burnham's, surrogate parents. They show up. Where the hell did they come from? Like, how did they know to be there? They fly in a ship, and they have this big emotional talk, and even Sarek, the Vulcan, who's like totally unemotional, has to give a speech about how he wished he had been a better father and husband and all this crap. I mean, are you kidding me? And then, so remember, this is all going on. They have less than an hour before the bad guys show up. They haven't even built this suit yet. They have this time crystal. They don't know if it's going to work. All these elements have to be put together. But yet, she has time to go through all these emotional little meetings. So, even with that, we see a scene where, imagine, they're on the ship. She meets them in a quarter. They talk, blah, 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 for 5 minutes. I was a horrible Vulcan father. And then the next cut is her waving out the window as their ship flies away. So they had to go all the way back, walk all the way through the ship to their ship, get in that ship, and fly around the thing. And meanwhile, she's been waiting there the whole time. Even though she has less than an hour to save the galaxy, she's been waiting the whole time so she can look out the window and wave at them as they go by. Of course, they can't see her or anything. But like, what kind of BS is this? Who writes this garbage? So I don't know how many. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4 emotional? There's more. So then she gets called to the bridge. They've got 20 minutes left now. She gets called to the bridge, and she meets Tilly as she's leaving her thing. And of course, they have to have a little cry, and I'm going to miss you. We're going to say goodbye without leaving. And then Tilly goes, after they have this little interlude, Tilly takes her down the corridor, and then there's everybody, all the important people on the ship. Saru, he's the number 2 guy. He's going to be the number 1. Instead of like getting ready to prepare for this giant battle they're going to have, he's there, and so they can all talk and say, "Oh, we're going to miss you, and we're going to stay on the ship, and we're going to help you out." Blah blah blah. No, you can't. Yes, we can. Don't tell us anything. Blah blah blah. And then, so remember, so they've got 20 minutes left. She's been called by the captain to come to the bridge. She talks to Tilly. And then she goes and has this big thing with all these other people, the rest of them who's going to stay on the ship. Then they leave, except for the guy who used to be the Klingon guy, who she had a romantic thing with in season 1. And he's got to go, "Oh, I'm going to miss you, and you're so great." And they got to have this emotional kissy face thing. I mean, right in the middle of the, remember, they have less than 20 minutes left. So then, and finally, when this is sort of over, the captain comes on the thing and goes, "Yeah, we got 11 minutes left now. Are you going to be up here there, Commander Burnham, anytime soon? I only called you like 9 minutes ago. What the hell?" Like, can you imagine? I can't imagine this ever happening in real life. The captain calls you, you get up there as fast as you can. He didn't say, come in 9 minutes after you've had 3 emotional huggy cries with other people on the ship. He said he wanted it right then. Maybe it's important. You think it would be 20 minutes till we all die and lose. Anyway, so then it's everybody on the bridge, and then another emotional speech. This time it's by Pike, so it's a little bit of a change, saying about how everybody's great, and there's this big timer going on in the view screen in the background. It's got less than 5 minutes on it, and he's blathering about how the crew is so great and he's going to miss them. And hey, that's I can see a captain maybe want to do that, but it's 5 minutes before the bad guys show up. You think maybe he wants to be on his own ship, making sure it's ready to fight the bad guys so that they don't all get killed? Maybe that's a little more important. Making sure that your crew survives, instead of, hey, thanking the other crew for, hey, you guys were really great. Maybe that's a little bit more important. This whole over emotionality stuff, I cannot, get over the whole episode is basically her saying goodbye to people, or them sitting around talking about stuff, about what we're going to do, and then let's go and give everybody hugs and cries. I mean, who writes this? It is just so over the top and unbelievable. It's like, I guess they were concerned about, everyone was saying that the actress who plays Burnham was acting like a wooden plank. So, hey, let's give her a whole bunch of episodes where she cries and begs and gets all emotional. I mean, it's a bunch of garbage. I can't believe somebody wrote this stuff and thought this would be good. So as I was recording and editing this video, Season 3, the first episode came out. So I thought I would just add at the end of this, before the video, my thoughts on the first episode of Season 3. At first, my thought about Season 3 was, well, I was hopeful, let's say. The whole premise of the season is they're pushing themselves 960 years in the future. That could be an interesting question, could be a good idea. That 960 years puts them forward about in the 3100s. So in Star Trek, we've seen the 23rd, 24th century, of course, in the main ones. We've seen some of those episodes push and show some technology from the 26th century, from the 29th century as well. But none of them have gone so far as the 3100s. So that could be interesting. They could do some interesting stuff with that. And of course, the Star Trek Discovery timeline is very different than the regular timeline. The Kelvin timeline is very different. So it might be interesting. And they did do some interesting stuff in the first, potentially interesting stuff in the first episode. They showcased some, personal teleporters. They talked about the history where something called the burn happened, where apparently all of the dilithium in the galaxy blew up or something all at once. So, that's an interesting concept. What's that about? How did that work? Is there a bigger mystery there? What's going on? So, not bad ideas. However, the first episode of the third season basically does everything that's wrong with the first and second season. It's the over emotionality of Michael Burnham. I mean, he's just over the top. She crashes on a planet and she digs herself out of a hole somehow and starts, crying and then screaming. I'm like, is this a Starfleet officer? Is this Star Trek? What the hell is she doing? And then later on, she meets another guy who's on the planet, the guy that she hit his ship with her suit. And she's, again, crying and begging him for help. It's just like, anytime he's like, okay, I'll help you, I guess. You put a couple tears in her eyes, and then everyone's supposed to roll over and do whatever she says. Like, is that what military officers do? That's not what I've seen them do. Cry to get help. And of course, so he decides to help her, but then he betrays her. And then she gets betrayed and taken by the authorities. They spray her with some chemical, and she starts acting like she's high. And then she tells them everything. They take her to the guy who's trying to sell, her various, antique Starfleet items. And, they surround him and say, okay, you're under arrest or whatever to him. And the two look at each other, and instantly they decide, just from looking at each other's eyes, instantly they decide that they're going to be buddies now, and they're going to beat the crap out of the 8 or 10 or whatever people surrounding them with, guns. Well, their version of guns. So I'm like, what the hell? Who writes this crap? Like, I can't believe. I mean, I had hope. Most Star Trek series, the first, second seasons, third seasons are kind of rough. You really don't get anything good until the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th season. That's been my experience with Next Generation, Voyager, to a lesser extent with DS9. I think DS9 was pretty well written right from the start, and interesting. But I mean, it's not, it's the third season. They still got another season before they get it right. I mean, geez, how much crap do we have to go through before they even get close to getting it right? It's just the character of Michael Burnett is just horrible with the constant crying and the emotionality. Like, what the hell? Maybe I'll do more on this. I'm gonna try to watch a little bit more of season 3. Maybe I'll do some sort of review on it. But I mean, this happened with season 2. I started watching it and I just couldn't get through it. I was just like, I finally only recently got through it again. I just had to sit myself down and force myself to do it. I don't get who writes this or what they're thinking when they write it. But anyway, so that's my quick thoughts about season 3 so far. And, my hopes, based on this, the first episode, my hopes for an improvement in season 3 are dashed. So that went a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like or subscribe, all that good stuff. See you on the next one.